So welcome, I'm Andrew Coates, I'm Scientific Director and CEO of the Heart Research Institute, and we're here for competition. So we're here for a heart-to-heart event, and I know some of you have been here before. I can recognise quite a few people in the audience, but it's a great pleasure because today Katrina is going to be interviewing and interacting with one of our new, fantastic, growing, spectacular, groundbreaking groups, the Djurali Centre. And it's a great pleasure, and you will hear a lot more about them. But before we do anything else, it's my great pleasure to ask Uncle Bo Rambaldini to give an acknowledgement of country on behalf of Djurali and HRI.
Thank you, Andrew. This event, this very important event, is taking place on the traditional and sacred lands of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. And I'd like to pay my respects to their elders, their ancestors, and extend that respect to everybody that's with us again tonight, both in person and those that are online. Thank you.
Thank you, Uncle Bo. And we're going to all be introducing each other. So what I'll now do is introduce Katrina Dowling, who's come join the HRI for about the last 9 or 10 months and has really revolutionised our outreach activities, and it's fantastic. And Katrina will introduce the very talented panel we've got, and I'm looking forward to tonight's discussion. So Katrina, over to you.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you very much for that introduction. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight for the third in our newly launched research seminar series, Heart to Heart. We're really pleased that you've made time to join us tonight. So a warm welcome to all of you here in the audience, and a big thank you too to those who have joined us online. We're really pleased to have your company. So as I shared when we launched Heart to Heart in June, our intention in inviting you in is to provide a regular opportunity for you all to connect with our research team so that you can keep up to date with what we're doing. It's an opportunity to learn more about, as Andrew said, the cutting edge research and progress we're making in tackling Australia's leading cause of death, cardiovascular disease. So by way of introduction, my name is Katrina Dowling. I grew up in a little place called Yarrambat, north of Melbourne, on the lands of the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people. And I'm now grateful to live and work on the lands of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. I'm also grateful to lead the development, philanthropy and communications team at HRI. So I'm joined tonight by Djurali Cultural Lead, Associate Professor Uncle Bo Rambaldini, Senior Research Fellow Dr. Uncle Joe Perry, Djurali Research Fellow Dr. Connie Hansen. So thank you all very much for agreeing to be part of this panel with me this evening and for the opportunity to talk to you all about your very important work. So what I might do is ask you, Uncle Bo, to just give us some background into your experience, the insights that you've learnt, and the things that have really shaped your life and your career. Why did you decide to dedicate your career to really shifting the health and well-being of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people?
Thanks, Katrina. I was born on the far north coast of New South Wales. And when I was born in this country, I was born a savage. I wasn't born a citizen. And because I was a savage of this country, I had no civil rights whatsoever. So the authorities and even society could do what they liked to me. And they did. So, I am the youngest of 7, I had 6 siblings, and my mother's a single parent. And I had one of my brothers removed by the authorities, just for being Aboriginal. And spending time with my mother and seeing her tossing and turning with guilt and for not protecting her son who was taken. She carried that guilt and that pain and that hurt to her grave. He did come back, but he came back and he had no really connection with us. So that was one thing that moved me, because I wanted to find out why he was removed, because I didn't fully understand then. The other thing is that when I was growing up in this town, I was forever picked up by the local police, and I was flogged many times. In fact, I was given an option about whether to go to the police station, be charged before the court, and in jail. And in them days, drinking was a serious offence. They could lock you up for that. I often took the option about going behind the car dealership and taking the flogging, because that was the most economic position for me. And that happened a few times to me. I remember one night after being picked up and they gave me the option, I went behind the car dealership and they flogged me and called me every dirty, rotten name they could possibly think of, and then told me to go home. And when I was walking home, struggling to walk home after the flogging, I was picked up by another police car, and they pulled over and thought I was drunk, so they gave me another flogging. When I remember those things that my mother went through by losing one of my brothers, when I came to Sydney, and I left Grafton because there was not a real lot there for me, when I came down here to Sydney, I thought about my mum, because she was the one that gave me direction. She's the one who instilled the strong values and principles inside me. So I wanted to find out why my mother had to go through all that hurt and pain. So I ended up joining a government department which looked after welfare in those days. They call them docs today. And I stayed there for 12 years to try and find out why it happened and what I could do about changing that behaviour. My mother always made sure that I leant towards the positive side of the ledger, and any anger that I had, I used it in a positive way. So I ended up working in welfare for 12 years. There was a unit called the Aboriginal Specialist Section. I ended up in that place, and I ended up changing the name to Gullamara, which is a Bunjalung name, which means welcome, come here, to try and make it a friendly place. And we did. We kept Aboriginal families together. I never forgot those floggings I got either. They were good ones. I can still remember the hits and the dirty names they called me, those coppers. All those times they met me on the streets. So when I came to Sydney, I joined the New South Wales Police. And I stayed there for 10 years. So when I got there, I noticed there was volumes and volumes and volumes of Commissioner's instructions. Everything about what uniform to wear, when to light up all that fruit salad on top of the motor vehicle, all about how to have control. But there was nothing in their dealings with people. And so, given that my people and police had a close and difficult relationship over a long period of time, I went about trying to develop a policy and some guiding principles about how we could engage with one another, and sit at the table and discuss our differences so that we can try and work out a way so we can coexist. I must admit it was very difficult because it was one of the most racist places I've ever worked in. And I was just lucky that I had a commissioner that was switched on and wanted to make a difference as well. Pardon me. And so I set up an Aboriginal Police Council where Aboriginal people from around New South Wales came and met with the Commissioner of Police, who chaired the meetings, to talk about the issues that were happening in their communities. And we started there by changing the ways and the recruitment of Aboriginal community liaison officers and Aboriginal police officers. So that helped break down and provide a better understanding between Aboriginal people and police. I always thought that the justice area was the one that was really causing a lot of issues. So, but then I realised it wasn't. I thought that if you had a job, you could go any path you wanted. So I ended up being the statewide manager for the employment in New South Wales. And I didn't stay there very long because I realised that there were other things involved that we needed to address in regards to all those targets that need to be met to improve the quality of life of Aboriginal people. So then I realised that if you haven't got your health, you haven't got anything. So then I took that path into health, and I worked there for a number of years. So that's the reason I'm in health, and I stayed there for many years in both state government and also the federal government. I worked in the Office of Torres Strait Islander Health to try and do what I can to improve the health of Aboriginal people, because we all know that Aboriginal people have the worst health outcomes than anybody else. We're the most disadvantaged, the most vulnerable, and the most marginalised people on this continent. And there's a lot of work, and we're the only race of people that are in the National Cabinet through Closing the Gap. And we're there because we have the worst health outcomes. We're so far behind the 8 ball that it's difficult for us to catch up. But one thing I do know, and I'll give it back to you, Katrina, is that we can't do it without you. We need you to come in, because we're only 3% of the population. The other side's 97. We can't do it without you, and you can't make it without taking us with you on that journey.
Yeah, thank you so much, Uncle Bo, for sharing that story. Every time I hear you speak and share your story, I find it both really confronting and really inspiring. And I think it's a story that speaks of incredible resilience. So thank you for sharing that with us all. Uncle Joe, I understand that the Rumbledini model forms the basis of the way in which Djurali operates. Can you please tell us a little bit more about this model? What is it, and how does it work in practice?
Should ask about this one. I'm surprised that it took over 5 minutes in his talk to mention Bunjula. He's been giving it to us all afternoon. So the Rumbledini model is about working together. It's about showing respect for Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal people working together to get outcomes, as they talked about Aboriginal health and try and close the gap. It's something that we hold very dear, the model, and we stick very steadfast to it, or we try to. And it's all about better outcomes for Aboriginal people with health and in health issues, and that's what we're on about. We're here to try and save lives, and we feel Bo's going to explain it to us better. You can tell a good yarn, mate.
What's happened, usually happens, is that people in ivory towers sit in their towers and they make some major decisions that impact on Aboriginal people's lives. The Rumbledini model is about engaging with people, community people, working out a common agenda. So we work towards finding, because just to cut it a bit shorter, that we know that Aboriginal people know what the issues are for their community, and they know what the answers are to those concerns that they've got. So it's about sitting down with them, finding a common agenda, and drawing up a plan so that we work together. Nobody's superior to anybody else. We walk together on this journey and we find a solution that will bring about positive outcomes for Aboriginal people. And it's all about engaging and communicating with Aboriginal people. What usually happens is that people usually develop plans for them in ivory towers, and there's no engagement. Things never work when we start doing that, and I'm sure that Connie can also expand on that, because she's had a fair bit to do with engaging with Aboriginal people around New South Wales.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'll just jump in a little bit about kind of when I came to work for the Djurali Centre, and part of what attracted me to it is this really structured model that basically facilitated the engagement between experts, researchers, and between community members who are experts on themselves and on their people. And I think I really like the way that both Uncle Bo and Uncle Joe talked about, and we all kind of know this, don't we? It's like there's no way that someone else imposing a solution is going to be helpful. We know our own bodies, we know our own health, and the model facilitates that collaboration so you get the expertise from both sides. There's a whole lot more to it. It's actually quite a structured model, and there's a number of conditions that need to be met, but I won't go into all that tonight. But if you're interested, please come to me.
No, that's terrific. Thank you all for explaining that. So it really speaks to, you know, the importance and the power of collaboration and true engagement and inclusion for there to be, you know, a shift in outcomes. Yeah. Okay. Good. Thank you. So Uncle Bo, I've heard you say, you know, when you've spoken, that you don't believe in mending fences. You believe in building bridges. Tell us more about this statement and why this is so important for the future health and well-being of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people and for the Australian population in general.
I don't think that non-Aboriginal Australia has a good understanding of the historical and contemporary positioning of Aboriginal people in this country. They've got a very good understanding of people in other countries, but they don't understand what's going on in their own country. You know, the things that happened in the past, you know, people don't want to look back there and have a look at it and see what we can do about using that as a tool to try and heal us, to come together, to live in harmony. And if we don't do that, we'll never be able to do it. It's not a pretty picture back there, but it's the truth. And you can find that truth in every library right across this continent. Because we had the oral history, the other side had the written history. They wrote everything down that they did to us and to my people. And you'll find it there. And I think that when those boats first landed here in this country, we didn't have any fences. So I tell people we're not here to mend fences with non-Aboriginal Australia, because fences are there to keep people in or out. We want to build bridges so we can come together and live together in harmony.
I think that's very, very powerful. Thank you. So Uncle Joe, we understand that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people suffer health challenges at a rate that is much higher than the broader population in Australia. Can you provide some insight into why this is so? Why does this disparity exist, and what are the primary factors that contribute to that?
I think, as Bo was talking about, history has been one of the major causes of health in Australia for Aboriginal people. There's been so much trauma that Aboriginal people experience as part of what they called colonisation. There were people that died more from massacres and murders in this country than they did from diseases, let me assure you, Aboriginal people. And that trauma lives on through generations and generations. And that's impacted directly on our all our health holistically. And until, as Bo said, we start building these bridges, those problems are going to keep on existing. All we can do in the meantime is try and fix those little problems when they flare up, but it's more band-aiding than fixing the problem. We need some big bridges, as my brother said.
And can I say that while talking to all you beautiful people here tonight, it's not about laying blame or guilt. We want to leave blame, pride and guilt outside that door. The moment we start bringing it into this conversation, that's when it's going to get a little bit tricky for us. So there's no need for that. All we need to do is sit down and understand each other. And when we've done that, we're in a better position to move forward to provide inclusion and equity.
Okay, terrific. And I guess inclusion from the outset in terms of the scoping out of research projects is really important too, yeah?
Yeah, it's just crucial.
Yeah.
Inclusion is everything.
Yes.
If you don't include everyone, it's not a process.
Yeah.
Yeah? You leave someone out, it's not a list.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Uncle Joe. So Connie, you're a research fellow within the Djurali team. We get to hear a lot from you. So tell us about your role and your background and how you came to form part of Djurali.
Okay. Well, so I'm one of the researchers with the Djurali team, and I joined the team, close to 4 years ago now. And the reason that I wanted to do this work is I think I have twin passions. One is I love to ask questions about health and figure out ways to answer them. So that's research. It's ask the questions and figure out how to answer them. I kind of like hard questions. And the second thing that drives me is a sense of social justice. I have a very strong sense of social justice. And as you can tell by my accent, even though I've been here for a long time, I'm not from this country. I'm definitely not an Indigenous person, but I can look around like all of you can too and see some of the things that Uncle Bo and Uncle Joe have talked about, and can see that we didn't have equity, we don't have justice. And so working in this health space just made so much sense to me. And to be honest, I have been absolutely privileged to work with people like Uncle Bo and Uncle Joe and other members of the team to work together to try to ask and answer some of these really hard questions. So
that's great. So one of the key projects that I know that you're really passionate about is the Wearables Project. Can you tell us what that's about? What is the basis for that project, and what impact will it have?
Thank you for asking.
You were dying to.
Get ready. Hold on, here we go. So one of the very first projects I did when I came and worked with the Djurali Centre was talking to older Indigenous women. And I asked them, how do they use digital technologies for their health? And a lot of people, if you're imagining right now, some of you are probably thinking, oh really, older Indigenous women, do they use a lot of technology? Well, the answer is absolutely yes. And in fact, what I found is these older women are just avid users of social media to get and share health information. Not only that, but they get the information, then they share it with people who aren't necessarily connected. So this wonderful connection that's happening here. But one of the questions I asked was, what technologies do you want to use? What are you using now? What do you want to use? And the issue came up around wearables, an interest in using wearable technology. And so we went and asked a whole lot of people across a number of communities, have you used wearable technology for health? What do you think about it? And again, 92% of the older women said they wanted to use a wearable device, like a smartwatch, to track their health. You hardly ever see, those of you who are researchers, when do you see 92% of anything? And so it was clear that that was a real interest. And so we were able to put together a grant to be able to do, in fact, it's just been published, the very first study using wearable devices to detect atrial fibrillation for older Indigenous people in one of the most beautiful places on earth, which is Djurali. And it was a pretty, if you want to check the conversation, we just published an article there, and we published the academic paper as well.
Mm-hmm. And can you provide us with a brief overview of that paper?
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Thanks for asking. So what we did is it was a pilot study, so we were looking at basically just acceptability and feasibility of using wearables, because we're in Brewarrina. If you've never been there, you fly to Dubbo and then you drive 6 hours. So it's a remote location. Internet is more variable there, so it's not like what we're used to here, where you just have it all the time. The temperatures, we did this in February. It was 36 degrees plus. That 36 was a nice day, and so it was nice and warm. And so we had people, and again, these are older people, all of whom had at least 2 chronic illnesses, including hypertension being one of them. On average, we had 3 to 4 in this population, in this group of people. And we had them wear smartwatches and patches. So the patches were actually measuring blood pressure, and the watches to look at the atrial fibrillation. And the thing that was the most wonderful about the study is, as you can imagine, there was all kinds of things that you couldn't predict, that you had to just kind of work out. This is the co-design, you have to work it out. But it wasn't just co-design with the people in the clinic that I was working with, it was co-design on the ground with the participants. And we literally were shoulder to shoulder working out how to make things, how to make it work. And what I found is with this, again, older people, some of whom had never downloaded an app before to their phone, they were just right in there with me, and we were working out, how do we make this work? And it was because they're so genuinely interested in improving the health. Just like you hear Uncle Bo and Uncle Joe talk, every one of these people, they're so genuinely interested in improving health in their community that they wanted to work.
And I think it is because we talk about that inclusion. Because they're included in the process, they're very excited about using it, and they're taking control of their own health by doing that.
So it's about owning their health. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Absolutely. No, 100%. Well, and that's just it. Like what came out of that, because we use an Indigenous research methodology where it's called yarning, and basically it allows us to hear much more free-form conversation what people are thinking. And what came out of it is this intense interest in being able to have a proactive approach. They didn't want to just monitor. That's what we were talking about. No. They wanted to know how they could exercise, how they could use this to monitor their exercise and improve their fitness, improve their health. So it was like taking it to that next step, which is what made us then, look for the next phase of the research, which was much more proactive health, if you will.
That's very exciting. So tell us a little bit about the future of your work and your projects that you've got on the go at the moment. Where are you heading? What's next?
So we really building out of about a 10-year history. Not when I was involved, but the team has been involved in 10 years of looking at screening for atrial fibrillation. And some of you might know atrial fibrillation is a heart arrhythmia that is one of the most common arrhythmias, and unfortunately, if you have it, it's also predictive of stroke and other cardiovascular diseases. And the saddest part is that it's 3 times the rate in an Indigenous population than in a non-Indigenous population. So it's over 7%, which is very, very high. And so my colleagues, Uncle Bo and Kylie Gwen and others, for over a decade have been looking at how do we screen people earlier? How do we screen them safely and effectively? You don't want to have to do a 12-lead ECG every time because you can't do that with everybody. But they, start out using a little device that big that you can measure in 30 seconds atrial fibrillation. And then did the studies to find out, how do you do that so it's acceptable? How do you make it work feasibly in a community? And so building on that, then came out of that is the wearable study. And then because the interest was so high there, now the focus is using the wearable devices as a even earlier screening, and also, as I said, around exercise and around fitness.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Connie. So, Uncle Bo, I understand that the water project is also a really significant piece of work. And, I find it astounding in speaking with you and the team around this project. I learnt that there's still 222 regional towns in Australia that don't have access to fresh drinking water. So that's over 75,000 people within Australia that don't have access to that fresh water. What is the impact on people in community from a health and lifestyle perspective of not having access to water? And what is the team looking to do to change that?
The impact is one that, as you would all know, that in those country towns, if you buy a bottle of water, it's a lot dearer than Coke. So you're going to take the cheapest option, given that my people are the most economically disadvantaged people. Most of them are on benefits, and it's very difficult for them to be able to afford the things they need to look after their old health. So, it all came about because we were trying to set up a program to look after their old health. And we found out that these things were going on, that we had to approach it by providing toothpaste and toothbrushes. 2 things that weren't on the shopping list, because you go to those country towns like Brewarrina and other towns out there in Western New South Wales that are isolated, those things could cost you up to $20 just for those 2 items. So it's very difficult for them to do that. But we were able to have a partnership with Colgate, get toothpaste, toothbrushes, and send them out there. But what we found out, we need to attack it from a number of fronts. And when we went to those communities, we found out that they were drinking hot water that was the same colour as my skin. And we had to do something about that. And we did. It took a lot of red tape and a lot of money as well to sit down and try and work out a way to try and get them so they're in a position where they can drink cool, refrigerated, clean, clear, yummy water. And we put that in the community. And not only did we put it in the community, but you might find this a bit strange that we also put it in schools as well. So everybody in the community was drinking cool, clear, yummy water, and it was a big change in their oral health. We also had people from oral health going around in dental vans and that trying to find them. But when we found out those numbers, it alarmed us because we found out that that's going to stop a lot of things. It's going to assist the health of my people because everything that impacts on our body goes through the mouth. So we need to look after that. And I think that if our target is to try and do something right across this country in all those areas to try and improve the consumption of clean, clear water rather than drinking sugary drinks, which has a serious impact on not only their health but also their oral health as well.
Absolutely. So it's about setting people up with the best chance right from the get-go in terms of formative years, because there's those clear links with oral health and diabetes and obesity and then cardiovascular health. Yeah. Okay, great. Look, before we go to questions from the audience, I'd like to ask each one of you if you could impart one life learning, one sentiment that has the capacity to shift the perspective of people in Australia and really get action in terms of improving health outcomes for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, what would you say or share with everyone? Connie, I might go to you first.
So I think the thing that I would share is moving beyond just not being racist to being anti-racist. That it has to be a proactive, everyday thinking about it, because there is, I'm sad to say, so much racism of the overt type, but also that's in our systems, and that is what's making people sick. And I think each one of us has to take that responsibility. That's probably the most helpful thing that we can do, to take that very active, I'm going to confront it, I'm going to change myself, looking in the mirror and saying, what do I need to do? That's the thing I would change.
Okay, thank you. And Uncle Joe?
I would probably say empathy, because with empathy comes understanding, and we need to understand that there are differences. We need to abide by those differences. We're all different, regardless. Even Aboriginal people are different. You get Bunjalung people, for God's sake. So, but it's all about, being able to understand difference and let it be that, I think the best thing that came out of the native title thing in the Wik people, they call it coexistence. We need to coexist it together, just to show respect for one another.
Uncle Bo?
History tells us that there was a time when all levels of government right across this country passed laws where they had complete control of my people. They made decisions about where we could go, where we could live. If we got a job, we had to get permission, and we even had to get permission if we wanted to marry somebody. And on top of that, they had full custody of our kids. They were able to take them whenever they liked. We had no say. So I would say, nothing about us without us.
Yeah, thank you. Very powerful. Thank you very much for sharing those insights and that information with us all in terms of the wonderful work that Djurali is undertaking. I'd now like to open up to questions from the audience. Do we have any questions from people?
I'm just going to go.
Oh, it's coming on top.
A question from Andrew.
Can I ask, team? I mean, I think tonight we've seen why the HRI is so proud and so pleased to have Djurali Centre as part of us. What's the HRI mean to you guys?
Who would like the mic? Should we jump in? Are you want to go? Okay, I'll say a few words. I think one of the, for one, it's that coming together. This is the inclusion, and I'm really excited to do the work that we get to do in the Djurali team. But one of the most exciting things about being at HRI is doing that work with partners and working with people across the whole spectrum of cardiovascular disease and health, and making sure that Indigenous people are included from the beginning of the research, because it makes all the difference in the world than if you go back later.
Yeah, I'd also probably end to say inclusion, because we're the poor siblings that came in and off the street, and the big family, and we've joined you, and all we're looking for is, and what we need from HR is the support and the respect for us to do what we do, and we can do it good, and we can do it well. So that's what we really need from what we see as HR. We want them to be our big brother, but we want us to be ourselves as well.
We're honoured that you've taken us on, because we know that HRI has integrity out there in the community. We know that you've got a very good reputation about delivering positive outcomes for all Australians to improve things around cardiovascular health. And we know that our people have the worst health outcomes than anybody else, and they die at a greater rate of cardiovascular disease. So we're so honoured and fortunate to be a part of this big, beautiful family, and we are a part of your family, and we're continuing to be a part of your family, and we're going to add value to the foundations that you've already set.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And that was a great question, Andrew. Thank you.
Wonderful presentation. Thank you so much. If you were to receive a big donation, what would you do with that donation today?
Who would like to?
I said earlier that we are the only race of people that are in the National Cabinet, and we're there because we have the worst health outcomes than anybody else. But in dealing with health, it's not just the health of the individual's body, it's about the health of the whole community. So we would spend every cent of that to try and we will, improve the quality of health in a range of areas, in justice, employment, housing, health, to ensure that they all complement one another to deliver the outcomes that we want, that will help our people with not only equity but also inclusion, and it allow us to let non-Aboriginal Australia to have a better understanding of where we sit and what's wrong with us, and how we can actually work together.
Yeah, I'd just say we'd use that money for our research to expand life. I've grown up on a reserve and I've seen so many people die at a young age, and although some things are improving, some things aren't, and I just like to see better outcomes, better health conditions.
Any other questions?
Thank you. It was partly answered by the last answer, but I was wondering, we've heard about heart health and even oral health. I wondered what other types of clinical research projects are happening. Can you give us a feeling for those other streams? And then on that theme, I guess, I was also wondering about, we heard about remote and regional type studies. I guess you'd call them clinical trials of some sort, but I was wondering about urban health and youth health, if there's focus there, was an opportunity for the future?
Always an opportunity for the future. So we do work a lot in remote and rural and regional areas, and that's part of that is quite deliberate in that there's a very high need. And so in addition to the neglect that can happen for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, as we would all know, remote areas, regional areas, rural areas are also neglected, so it's kind of a double whammy. So we focus a lot of our attention. We do work in urban areas, but I would say a big part of our work is out. We have worked because a lot of our work is cardiovascular, but it's not all of our work. But that has been a big part of it. There's dental has been a huge piece, a very huge piece in the past. We're working in genomics. We're working in breast cancer. Help me out here, Vita.
Workforce?
Workforce. Oh yeah, workforce. I think that's a really good one, and Uncle Bo talked a little bit about that. Of like that we look. Health is not just one thing, and so people having good jobs and having prospects and having education is a huge part of it. And in fact, our workforce program, where we do vocational education for across a number of different industries, we're getting above 90% graduation rate compared to the typical TAFE, which would be in the 27%. So it's pretty good. And that's you know, I can't brag about that. That's my colleagues who have developed over the time a model that addresses each and every one of the challenges that keep people from being able to graduate. And so it's that comprehensive program, and Uncle Bo talked a little bit about that. It's like going to communities and talking with them about what's important. And that's how we design our priorities. It's what the community thinks they want to do, and that's the way that we build our research. So we would go in any direction, be it youth, be it older, whatever. Yeah. Do you guys want to say?
Oh, just add a couple of, you know, there's we want to talk about the brain matters. So we're working in that area. We're working with concussion. We're working with a range of things that we're getting from the community, because they're the ones that have got the questions, and we're quite happy to find the answers as long as they come along with us as equal partners. So we run and involved in a range of projects, and like Connie had said, it's not only just health issues, although it has an impact on health issues. You know, we're working with Legal Aid New South Wales to employ over 200 Aboriginal people to work in the legal system. So we're trying to get people to address those justice issues and the incarceration issues that are occurring throughout this country. And I think that once we start getting people in there to be a voice for Aboriginal people, it's going to make some sort of a change. Yeah, it was a bit disappointing at the last referendum where we got a no vote. All we wanted to do was have let people recognise that we were here first, recognise us as being the people in their founding document, but they made it very clear they didn't want us in that document, and they also made it very clear for us not to have a voice. But we're making some noises outside, because that's what NAIDOC's all about, about loud, black and proud. And we are all those things, because we want to bring about change, but in doing that, we want to always lean towards the positive side of the ledger. We want to work with everybody in this community to try and bring about change. And if people have got some negative attitudes to them, we want to sit down with them and try and explain to them that the lives that we lived and how we can try and change attitudes.
Terrific, thank you. Now, Chris, I think I saw your hand up.
He always asks the question.
They're never any good though. The facts that you gave about water are so upsetting, especially when we live in a country where it's, it's that affluent you can pay $20 for avocado on toast. So how are we in this position where there are parts of this country that don't have access to clean water, and more importantly, how do we go about fixing it long term?
You're right, you know, this is a very wealthy country. There's no reason why anybody should be drinking water the same colour as my skin that's hot. We can change that. We can change that by having a relationship with local government, with state governments, and getting the funding to try and implement those changes, because, you know, being minorities, it's very difficult. We know that the people that get left behind are the people that are in regional and remote areas of Australia. And given that they haven't got a very strong voice out there, it's very difficult for them to make all the noise to get the people that need to hear it to come out there and try and implement systems in place so they can improve things that will improve their lives, and it'll be good for it'll save money, it'll do a range of things. But you're right, and it's very difficult. But I think if we've worked out that if we can get, and there's all those communities, if we get something like $5 million, we could make a huge dent in those huge numbers we spoke about.
And I understand that $5 million, Uncle Bo, would be dedicated towards putting in place the infrastructure to deliver the fresh drinking water to community, right, and set up the fountains and bubblers. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
And you know, it's a great example too, Katrina, because that is a project that we know what to do. It's not like we have to figure out what to do. We know what to do. It's just being able to have the resources to do it.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Any other questions? No? Oh, I see another hand. Ian.
Thank you. Thank you very much for tonight. I really, really have enjoyed it. There's a couple of expressions that have been used again and again and again. Community and sit down has been used probably 20 or 30 times. It kind of implies slowing down with decision making, slowing down and engaging, and slowing down to actually take the time to learn, which is not really the way at least government works mostly. And there are always exceptions. There are always people who think differently. How do you convince people to slow down and really engage as opposed to doing some sort of superficial process? And how do you convince people that that is the most effective way to actually deliver a real world outcome?
I don't know if there's any real clear solutions to that. I mean, it's processes from government, bureaucracies have been around for a long time, and to break those down is a hell of a lot of work. And I'm not real sure myself how we get around those sort of things.
Philanthropy.
Well, look, it's something that can't change. You know, governments have got the power to try and influence those things. But if you work with people that really do the work, and they're the bureaucrats in these government departments, and try to explain to them about how we can save money, how we can improve the bureaucracy by ensuring that those Western systems benefit Aboriginal communities and non-Aboriginal communities. So there's a win-win for everybody around. It is a question that people are using as a road hump to try and slow things down, and really there's no reason why it could. It's just that the bureaucracy. If you just get rid of the bureaucracy to some sense, I'm sure we could move at a faster rate than we are now.
Exactly.
Terrific. Okay. We've got time for one final question. Yes. Well, there's two questions over there.
Thank you. My name's Dave. I've been fortunate or unfortunate, however you want to see it, to spend a lot of time in various levels of government in the corporate sector around service delivery, design, engagement, and more especially around policy and decision making. We're here. I think there's a very big misconception that co-design is just about including the people on the ground and they're almost like an end result. They're almost like an afterthought. The only way that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people can benefit from essentially what is service delivery, irrespective of what discipline it is co-design must start from the top. And it starts from the conception of a program, through the design, through the development, and ultimately the implementation. I want to know from Djurali Heart, what structures, what have you got in place currently that inform the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander world perspectives to help combat or fight against non-Indigenous world perspectives in the inception, design and delivery and ultimate implementation of programs? What have you got currently that exists that you use to impart that cultural IP?
That is a great question. So there's a couple of things, and we've already touched on some of that. I think, and you're absolutely right, I think it's even in some ways before the inception. So we have long-standing relationships with communities. And so we don't come up with a research idea and then go, do you want this? The ideas grow up through the community. Like the example I talked with you about of what the older women said they wanted. And then that built, and then that built. And so we are designing the studies based on what we're told. The Rambaldini model is actually a great, it's the structure that lets us do that. And so everything comes from, when we call it a common agenda, but in that we privilege Indigenous perspectives. And so, yes, we're all equal in that development, but who are the people that should be saying what's the priority? It's not me, it's not HRI, it's not universities, it's the people on the ground that care the most about their health, that know what the priorities are going to be. And at Djurali, we think about ourselves, like, it's going to sound kind of funny probably to most people because you do an area of research and you're about that kind of research. We're quite agnostic. We do health research, but as Uncle Bo and Uncle Joe have already talked about, that also includes workforce development. That also includes putting in water fountains, because it's the community that tells us what's important, and they tell us how to do that. If I might just take a tiny example here. So this is before my time, Uncle Bud can speak about this better, but a perfect example was, there was a time in the past where Djurali had a chunk of money to do some things around dental care. And I think the dream of the team, and a beautiful big dental facility that's built out in a regional area, and it's going to be great and it has all the latest cool business and all of this. But of course they did the right thing, and they went and talked to the community and said, we got this chunk of money, and what they said was, we want to be able to walk to the dentist. Well, you don't build a big facility that people can't do that. And so that's when the dental vans came about. That's when the water fountains came about. And all of that was driven by the community's needs, not by the researchers' needs. And that can be hard. It's not, our funding systems aren't always geared that way, but you have to work within that, but still be driven by what the community wants. That's my comments.
You're so right, David. But I'll go a step further. Over my term, working in all three levels of government, I've seen that many strategies and policies developed to improve the quality of life for Aboriginal people. And a lot of them, there's a lot of good ones there. But there was no will to actually make it happen, to make it implement it. And it didn't go right through the organisation. It was just a strategy that sat on a shelf. So we needed some genuine will from the people that were running the organisation to try and bring about changes in that area. The strategies that I saw, they just seemed to change, and over all those years of looking at them, there are really only two things that did change, and that was the date and the author. Everything else was the same.
Great, thank you. And I think there's another question just up in the back row there.
Hi. So my understanding comes from a bit of a place of ignorance. So this was my first referendum as an Australian citizen, and everyone I spoke to, it was a clear yes. So when there was a no, I was actually like, in my own ignorant world, completely and utterly shocked. What was that your feeling as well? Did you think that it was going to be a no? And if it would have been a yes, what would that have changed? Would it make you get projects off the ground easier? What would have actually changed with that yes, which is the way I thought it was going to go?
I think we were hoping it was going to go a yes, but it didn't work out that way. And at the end of the day, a lot of people were going, "Oh yeah, I'll vote yes," but they didn't vote yes because, you know, underlying COVID racism with a lot of people. If it was a yes, people have got to realise at the end of the day, the yes vote was advisory body. It was just still advisory, but at least it was Aboriginal people putting things forward at a level that, at a government level. Regardless of whether they would have been ahead or not, I'm not sure, but at least it would have been at a level where people would have had to have listened at least and made some decisions about it.
I was hoping because it was a vehicle that was going to bring us closer together. I carry a lot of trauma from the past, and when that didn't get over the line, I tell you what, I can't explain the hurt and the pain that it's done to my heart and my confidence. I found it very difficult, and I still find it difficult, that non-Aboriginal Australia don't want us in their founding document, and they don't want us to have a voice in this country. We have, you know, like I said before, we're the most disadvantaged, the most vulnerable, and the most marginalised people in this continent. And nothing will improve in closing that gap unless we start coming together and have a better understanding of each other. And that was an opportunity for us to do that, and it was missed. But that doesn't mean to say we've got to give it up. That's just told me that Bo, you and that team at Djurali is just going to have to put the arm to the grind of the wall and work a lot harder.
So the no is fuel, it's motivation for driving forward, Uncle Bo. Yeah. Okay, great. Well, look, thank you to everyone for joining us tonight. We hope that you found this conversation really interesting and inspiring. If you would like to connect in and learn more, please do. Please reach out to our team by phone, by email, and we'd be happy to engage further. If you would like to get involved immediately, on the 27th of September, we have a packing day coming up. We plan to pack 5,000 bags that will go out into community to provide, you know, essential products to help Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. So, Sheila, I see you're in the audience and you volunteered, so we thank you in advance for coming to join us. But please, everyone, you'd be welcome to take part. Please follow us on social media. If you like what you've heard tonight, we'll be posting content, so please share with everyone. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Enjoy the rest of your evening.